Welcome to the Going Deep podcast. Brandon Angelo of Angelo's
Hello.
Analysis, Matt Waldman, RSP. You know us, and we're going to talk a little bit about, the age of the weapon back and rookies who are surprising expectations in camp and maybe those who aren't meeting expectations in camp. And just maybe camp thoughts overall, just like takes on how we view training camp. And then year two and year three guys who might fall into larger roles than what we anticipated. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So let's kick this off. Tell us about the age of the weapon back and your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we're seeing backs built more like Jameer Gibbs, Devon A-Chain, and have the legitimate skill set to play in the slot or at times out wide. I mean, we talked about this at length pre-show and after show a couple months back of, the training camp fodder of, oh, this guy is going to see much more time at receiver. This guy's going to see much more time in the slot. And normally it's just a bunch of hooey, but we're legitimately seeing running backs now play a percentage of their snaps in the slot, especially the higher end guys, the guys at the top of this weapon back pyramid, I call it, of Jameer Gibbs and Devon A-Chain, where they can not only play in the slot, they impact the spacing of a defense so much more when they're utilized as a receiver, whether it's out of the backfield or in the slot or out wide, because you can have a traditional setback in the backfield. You can have your Dave Montgomery back there. You can, you have your Raheem Mostert if you're Dolphins last year, and this year looking like Ollie Gordon or some of those other guys in that backfield backing up A-Chain. But that's the unique part, is I think we're going to see more backs be utilized as primary options in the passing attack because of the space it creates for other players and the mismatches it creates from a defense. So you look at it from a defensive perspective. If you're playing cover one, cover zero, the biggest mismatch on the field is the running back versus the backer, or the running back versus the safety. And if you have a really high-end pass-catching backer or one that has the capabilities of a receiver and high-end play speed, high-end accelerator like Gibbs A-Chain, then you have a significant mismatch. Not only do you have, the angle and option routes that you can work with wheels, you can work different types of patterns out of the backfield in the slot. And so that, I think that's kind of where the position is trending. And we think about it from a longevity perspective too. It's interesting seeing that we look at bigger backs as the ones to last longer. But I think now we're going to see this new age of running back where it's the backs that can be more versatile are going to last longer because they're going to take much less pounding between the tackles. They don't necessarily have to play as big. They can play more in space. And guys like A-Chain's probably 195 pounds soaking wet. Man, he could play a decade, especially if he continues to improve as a receiver, right? He can legitimately play two positions. I think we saw this with Deebo Samuel, obviously, at receiver and then coming and playing running back. I think we're just going to see it much more at the running back position of guys who can legitimately play receiver. Like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara could have done that. They didn't do it very often. McCaffrey made much of, his money, I would say, out of the backfield, and he could very well play in the slot. But I think that's kind of the next wave of running back, is that weapon, because defenses have a really hard time with that. And that's going to be an interesting part of this kind of next wave. And I think guys in this class like Travion Henderson, Rashard Smith, RJ Harvey can start to maybe carve out that role in their respective offenses and kind of grow with that, that weapon back that I think Gibbs and A-Chain have kind of fostered.
Okay, so let's go down the list of players and let's talk about guys that we think already are weapon backs and guys we think, like you just mentioned with RJ Harvey and Rashard Smith, who have a chance to become weapon backs, and guys who maybe aren't weapon backs. And we don't have to go through like a long explanation
that's
of
a
them,
fun exercise.
but let's go through the exercise, because here's my thing. I understand. I love your point about where you're going with this. My question is, before we even get into this exercise, you talk about them being primary options that create spacing for other players. Are you saying that they're not they're being used in the slot to be sacrificial to create spacing for other players, and they're not going to get the ball a lot, but they are going to put stress on the defense?
Correct.
Okay,
I
so
think that's the biggest thing. And you can't, obviously, those guys can, produce in the slot. However, I think it's their skill set and the fear factor they bring
okay,
that can really open up an offense. Like if you have Jahmyr Gibbs on one side and then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side, like that's tough.
yeah,
And it really opens up the intermediate areas of the field, I think, too, because you're really worried about, as a safety climbing down or backer sliding over, being beat over the top.
okay. So that's great, and I think that makes sense, and it also shows that there's a beneficiary. There are beneficiaries to these players being that way. My concern is, as a fantasy guy, when I think of it, when I put on the fantasy hat, I look at this and go, okay, there's going to still be a bunch of guys who are basically running themselves out of not getting targets and touches. So, does that mean that, like, Bucky Irving, if he's put in the slot, that I should, that maybe Sean Tucker eventually will be getting more opportunities, or Amika Ekbuka or Chris Godwin, and then Irving's a little overrated as a fantasy producer? Am I overcompensating with that concern?
No, it's interesting because I think there's there's a kind of a select skill set for those W backs, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest one for me when I look at it is being able to create explosives from multiple alignments.
Okay.
Right? Against backers, safeties in particular. Like guys like Bucky, for example. Bucky can do damage, I think, more so as an option out of the backfield. You're not as worried about Bucky Irving in the slot, like beating you vertically, right? That's just not what he does. So that's where it's interesting, where those guys who can be more sacrificial lambs are the higher end play speed types too.
Okay.
Like Brashard Smith. We see all this noise about Brashard Smith getting time at the ones, and I love Brashard Smith coming out of SMU. I think a lot of it's going to be him just putting stress on backers and safeties, right?
Yeah.
To get Rashee Rice open, to get Travis Kelce open, to give Patrick Mahomes a little bit more time.
To confuse folks for Xavier Worthy over the top.
Right. And that's the big thing too, is you're going to be able to create a different stressor for defensive coordinators where they're not going to be sending so many folks.
Yeah.
Like that's huge, right? Because if you cover zero and you have a backer on Smith and okay, we just check to a wheel. Oh, great, good ball placement, and that's probably 6 points. Like, but that's the really interesting part, is you can kind of neuter some of your blitz packages, honestly, by having one of those higher end guys who can legitimately have a receiver skill set. But that might not equate to more fantasy production. Like all this noise about, okay, Jahmyr Gibbs is working at receiver and people are excited. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more productive fantasy wise. It just means him being on the field in that capacity is going to make it harder for defenses. It's not going to potentially equate to more targets, which I think is the tougher thing to kind of pinpoint.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think that's where I want to steer this conversation then, because I think what you highlighted is fantastic in the standpoint of being able to say, listen, Brashard Smith's going to be valuable to the Chiefs, but he's going to be more valuable to the Chiefs offense than he's going to be valuable to fantasy GMs right now. Whereas Christian McCaffrey, you could probably look at him and say, his value is probably going to remain steady as long as he's healthy. And he's capable of giving you a combination of both. And then you can look at someone else. You might be able to look at them and we might go, okay, they're going to increase their value as a result of what's going on here. So let's do that. Let's talk about, we'll run through a play and we'll say it's going to stay relatively the same. It's going to be a little higher. It's going to be a little lower. What do you think?
Great.
Okay.
I love it.
Bijan Robinson, a little higher, lower, or neutral? Or the same, I mean, yeah.
I think production-wise a little bit higher than last year.
Okay. Okay. Gibbs?
Oh, that's tough. I can't say higher because he took so many carries the last 6 weeks of the year because of Montgomery. But I want to say higher because I do think they do involve him more as a pass catcher. Because that wasn't a Ben Johnson thing.
Yeah.
That's not what he did very often with Gibbs. Um, I'm gonna say neutral.
Okay. I'm going to say neutral with Gibbs too. I'm going to say neutral with Robinson mainly because they're going to implement more of the University of Washington offensive concepts into this in this
Yeah,
team, and
yeah,
Robinson's going to set up a lot of play action. We're going downfield, baby, in Atlanta. I mean,
right.
Kirk Cousins is still complaining on TV somewhere, so
Yeah,
that's all fine. Saquon Barkley the same. Because they put him down, they let him go downfield a good bit last year anyway. For a running back at least.
I would say trending downward.
Okay.
It's having the season that they had collectively as a unit. The one thing you want to do is you want to try to repeat, and a big part of that is having Saquon healthy.
Yeah.
Come playoffs.
Yeah. And I think they also want to be able to find a redundancy plan. That's why they brought A.J. Dillon in. That's why they have Will Shipley. They probably want to throw it a little bit more often so that A.J. Brown's not reading books at the sideline. All that kind of stuff. Good for A.J., but
Sure.
I love him. But Christian McCaffrey, what do you think?
It's got to be up, right? I mean, I think, especially with, Ayuk being out for X amount of weeks with the ACL, coming back from that, and Jennings dealing with the calf, and Pearsall has been perpetually banged up with hamstrings and soft tissue. Even go back to college, that was a Pearsall thing. I mean, I think he's going to touch the ball. CMC's going to touch the ball so much.
If you can come out of your first round, in the back of the first round, with Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, which I've been seeing in some drafts, I think that's going to change this month. But if you come out with that, you got my stamp of approval for the next 5 rounds.
100%.
You could fuck up the next 3 to 4 rounds.
You could just throw it in the trash. I mean, here goes this. I mean, I think people are fading CMC due to age, and he's no more likely to get injured than anybody else who sees that many touches. And that's what I think the difficult part. I mean, he's so productive when he's on the field, and that offense severely needs his presence.
Yeah. There's Jamar Chase to me. Like, there's Jamar Chase in his own tier just because I think he could still do better than what he's even done.
Sure.
And then there's Christian McCaffrey in his own tier below that to me. And then there's everybody else. And if you told me you wanted Christian McCaffrey over Jamar Chase, I'm not going to argue with you.
Sure.
This year. Like, we did a mock draft of football guys, and I had the 11th spot, and he fell to me, and I was just dying laughing. Like, I was literally like, okay, this is great. All right, how about Ashton Ginty? Do you think he gets into that mix this year?
Into like the McCaffrey type mix of tier?
Not in the tier, but like, is he going to be more of a? Are they going to use him like one of these weapons? Is he a weapon back this year or no?
I would say no.
Okay.
I think his usage is going to be similar to what we saw his senior year at Boise State, and that's just kind of how Pete Carroll likes to play football.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of how it's going to be. I think it's going to be a lot of 12 personnel with Bowers and Mayer, and it's going to be a lot of running the rock and a lot of play action and a lot of keeping Geno upright and a lot of Ashton Ginty. I think it's hard to say guys are going to be using that W role to just kind of be more of honestly a creator for others. I just think it's a 12 personnel heavy team, so it's almost it's not going to happen as much.
All right. Well, Derrick Henry, I mean, we could put wings on the Buffalo, but I don't think that's going to happen. So how about Devon Achane? We know he's a weapon back. You mentioned him. Is he going to help himself more, help others more?
I think he's going to have to help others more.
Okay.
Because last year, that was historic usage as a receiver. I think a lot of that was honestly to do with Tyreek Hill's injury, which got downplayed, right? And I was Tua too. Like, so I would say he's going to be the sacrificial lamb more than we'd like. I think he's still going to be a big focal point of their offense. I think the running game revolves around what he does on outside zone. However, I think the biggest beneficiary of what he does is going to be Jalen Waddle.
Okay.
I think that's going to be a huge one in being able to get Waddle more looks. And I think Waddle is going to overtake Hill this year. That's kind of my big prediction.
I love that. I actually think they're both going to rebound, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But Waddle's a steal right now.
100%. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Every day of the week.
All right. So we talked about Irving already. How about Chase Brown? He really improved his receiving skills between year 1 and year 2. Had a huge amount of carries last year, but towards the end. But again, do you see the Bengals using him in that capacity?
No, not particularly. Just because I think you have in my opinion, the best receiver on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And then you have T. Higgins, who's a great Robin to the Batman.
Yeah.
And I think you just kind of roll with that and use Brown in the screen game. And I don't think his route tree is developed enough to utilize him on like the intermediate area stuff yet. That's my opinion. I could be very wrong, but I think more of a screen game outlet option is what we see Chase Brown, and those guys can get themselves open for sure too. So
Sure. Okay. So Jonathan Taylor is an underrated receiver, but I think we can skip him. Right now.
For sure.
All right. Josh Jacobs is an underrated receiver, but do you see Matt LaFleur doing that with him?
No, I still don't think he has the play speed, especially at this stage in his career. He never did.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing too, is if you can't stress the defense vertically from a slot alignment, it's hard for offensive coordinators to take a running back and put him out there.
Yeah. So then Kyron Williams is an excellent, angle route runner, put him in screens, all that. But Sean McVay's offense isn't veering away from what that offense does. He's basically a distraction on play action. James Cook, though.
I think he could be. I think that offense might need that, because that offense is going to need a legitimate primary receiver. Like right now, it's like you look at that offense, and they don't have a guy that would start on most teams.
Yeah, right? not a primary speedster who can run timing routes.
Not like a number one. I think Khalil Shakir is great, but I mean he's a good slot receiver.
Yeah,
but there's not, there's gonna be a need to help get Keon Coleman free, and some of those other guys too, like Palmer. Like he's okay, right? He's kind of just a guy at receiver who will float around the league forever.
Yeah. Elijah Moore, same thing.
Yeah, but I think James Cook can help unlock that offense in the passing game, and I think he himself can be a big part of what that passing game can do. I think he's an excellent receiver. I think he's one of the better receivers in the league at running back.
Do you think Joe Brady was brought in basically to say, listen, we think that that Josh Allen, it gets too security blanket-esque with his primary receiver, and he becomes reckless when he starts to over-depend on one player. So we're going to go ahead and just neuter the primary receiver spot, and we're going to go ahead and put in a bunch of guys that you just described, so that he's forced to spread the ball around more as an exercise and to keep this offense honest. Do you think there's any legitimacy to that idea, or is that just conspiracy theory?
There has to be a legitimacy, because there's no way you can just on paper look at your offensive skill players and say this is a Super Bowl championship level of skill player.
Yeah.
Like their best skill player is legitimately James Cook.
Their best vertical threat might be Kelly Akiri, and he probably won't make the team.
Yeah, and that's not good.
No.
And so there's not, there's not that guy for, the guy who can throw the ball a country mile.
Yeah.
Like you don't have that dude. I mean, they drafted Keon Coleman the second last year.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff I don't understand.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
They passed on
Xavier Worthy.
They passed on Worthy. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing is like that was I thought that was. I remember when that happened. I was floored, and you just let the Chiefs get him.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like insanity to me. But yeah, I think there has to be some validity to, they want Josh to spread the ball around and kind of be the conductor of the train. And I mean, but that's going to be a lot. I mean, it's a lot of James Cook. Like you gotta.
I'll pick about 5 to 7 more guys here. So Alvin Kamara, I think he just needs a quarterback and just let's cross out he needs a quarterback before we can even really get into that. He's going to be the same guy he was, but they're not going to be able to do much more advanced than that.
It's not going to be the Drew Brees days when it was, just the angle and option routes, like him and Drew Brees, just absolutely eviscerated linebackers. And it's honestly just going to be kind of a shit show, I think, in New Orleans because they're going to be bottom 5 in scoring offense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to predict Kamara having a legitimate W back type role at this stage in his career, but also to having game to game consistency outside of volume.
Yeah. Like
it's just
well,
it's just hard to find points in New Orleans.
Yeah. We'll skip Breece Hall because, one, we don't know if he's all the way back. And I think people are concerned about that. I think he is, but I don't think the coaches think he is. And although Aaron Rodgers talked about him being a McCaffrey-esque type of receiver, I don't know if, Justin Fields is going to be able to find his third read. So that's a problem. Ken Walker's in a Clint Kubiak offense, which tells me basically he's the distraction to the passing game. James Conner, nah. Omar, let's go DeAndre Swift with Caleb Williams. He's got speed, but he doesn't have burst.
Yeah, I think I would say no, just because I think he's better kind of in that 4-man's Kamara type receiving game. When we're looking more angle option routes, but screen game for Swift, it's just hard because Swift's not.
Yeah,
he's just not a very good runner.
He's not a great route runner either.
He's not. So it's like you're trying to pinpoint a role for him, and like historically, Ben Johnson doesn't love him. So, yeah, I don't know. I think for him, it's going to be. I think it's a no. Also, there's a ton of mouths to feed in that offense. Holy cow, they have weapons on weapons. So, I think the W back in that offense is going to be DJ Moore.
Yeah, there you go.
I think he's the one that's going to be able to, because here goes this. You talk about a guy who fits the mold of, okay, he can be a team secondary rusher. He can play in the slot. He can take the cheap targets. He can create after the catch. Is DJ Moore a great deep threat? No. I think he's a great first, second level target who can bring you value in the intermediate areas of the game. And that's what he is. I do not think and I've said this for the longest time, I do not think he is a primary option in a passing offense. I think this W role for him, kind of playing that hybrid role, that Deebo Samuel type, for him, runner to receiver, is the best role for him. We're seeing it kind of play out. Yeah. Like we're seeing Ben Johnson utilize him in the red zone in the backfield.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing him giving carries and uses a decoy and utilized against backers and the safeties. That's where he can thrive.
Yeah.
He's not a high volume wide receiver. And I think the only one, there's two on the Bears roster, and that's a Dunze and Bird. And I think those are the two guys that I look to and say, hey, these are the two that can handle volume at all three levels.
Yeah.
And succeed.
And then you have one that can handle volume at 2 levels at a high level, and that'll be Colston Loveland.
Correct.
He's going to benefit a lot from this worked with Moore in that
Yep.
regard. So I agree, and I think you could see Burden if he had caught on a little faster. You could see how Johnson might have said, "Let's add some of these responsibilities because he's eventually going to get some of those." But
Yes. Yeah.
Moore's the best fit because Moore is
100%.
a tackle breaker. More like Burden's shifty and has contact balance to a degree, but it's not no one's on the level of DJ
No,
Moore other than Debo.
I agree. Yeah.
So
I agree.
and Moore's probably a better runner than I think Moore's a better Debo than Debo.
Debo is. I think Moore is a more productive, versatile, but also resilient version of Debo Sam. Like
Yes.
Debo plays closer to Isaiah Pacheco
Yes.
because he's just kind of out there just freaking trying to run through a brick wall. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of nuance to his game as a run.
Yeah.
And that works okay at the receiver position when you're that big and that aggressive. He was 215 pounds, right? But DJ Moore has great fluidity in open space, can run you over, tough when he wants to be. And that's, I think, for him, a great role. And one that could be very, very fantasy relevant, too, in that Bears offense. When you're looking to give Caleb Williams easy targets. Because if you look the Lions offense, easy targets is what Ben Johnson getting guys open.
So how many runs do you think DJ Moore has this year? Are we over 30?
Oh, over 30. Here goes this. I think it solely depends on how Swift, Johnson, and Monangai do.
Yeah.
Because he's going to, you go from Gibbs in Montgomery to, Swift, Monangai, and Johnson. It's kind of a step down. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it just depends on how they do and how Swift operates. But here goes this. If Swift is, 3.6 yards a carry Swift, and Johnson's just your goal line bruiser, Monangai hasn't caught on to the NFL game yet, then I think Moore sees a bevy of carries. Because I think you have to.
Yeah.
At that point.
Okay, cool. So let's see. To me, the most obvious weapon back that isn't the obvious weapon back, maybe when you first mention players, would be Aaron Jones.
For sure.
Aaron Jones is arguably one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. I'd put him top 3 in terms of contested catches, down the field, tracking the ball, and they don't use him all that much. But now you have Jordan Mason and you have O'Connell saying, we could see this as a 1A, 1B, even split type of situation. And we've seen Aaron Jones in those situations deliver top 15 fantasy totals in that role, because he's so efficient. You could see with Jordan Mason in the backfield, Aaron Jones being put in that slot, especially while Jordan Addison is out for a few games, while TJ Hawkinson is still kind of getting it together, or Justin Jefferson getting it together if they are a little banged up here and there. Jones could be sneaky good that way.
I agree, and I think that was something that you saw a lot earlier in his career. As a receiver, I think being used, especially now with Jordan Mason, being utilized in the slot makes a lot of sense. Veteran savvy, you have the ability to take some pressure off of JJ McCarthy. That's one thing too with these weapon type backs. One thing you notice immediately is, especially the Lions down the stretch when they didn't have Montgomery, is Gibbs being brought out to the slot. You just take a lot of pressure off of Goff because you immediately he's a coverage dictator too. That's a big one. And I think that's not talked about enough for utilizing the running back as an actual receiver. He's a coverage dictator.
Yeah.
So if you're Goff, there are definite tells there if you split out Gibbs. I think that's a huge one. So I think young quarterback like JJ McCarthy, you need all the help you can get to dictate coverage, to understand where to go with the football, when to be there. I think it's super underutilized, and I think O'Connell is looking for ways to make life easier for JJ McCarthy, because he made it as easy button as you can get with Sam Darnold. It was, brother, see it, throw it. Like I'm gonna get JJ open for you. You're just gonna throw it to JJ.
His play against pressure and the blitz was great, but the offensive line is also top tier. And
Bingo.
there's a big, you can give Darnold some credit for what he did, but you should give that offensive line a lot more credit. And we're going to get a referendum on Sam Darnold with this building Seattle offensive line, but we don't know how good it's actually, these additions are actually going to be.
That's going to be a really interesting time in Seattle, because the one thing I'll say about the Minnesota offensive line, it kept them clean long enough. Because Sam Darnold can throw it a country mile.
Yeah.
He can put it anywhere on the field and really spray the ball. And that's one thing you saw in Minnesota was if you kept him clean long enough, he's going to let it fly.
Yeah.
But in Seattle, are they going to be able to keep Darnold clean long enough to see his third level reads? That's what he loved to do. When he was under pressure, deepest reads getting the target. And I don't know in Seattle if you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So that'll be intriguing to see how they utilize that, and also to the playmakers they have around them. I mean, just Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ken Walker, and
Cooper Kupp.
But that, I mean, there's not really a level 3 guy.
Yeah, Torrey Holton.
Torrey Horton is your best deep threat, which could be good, could be bad, but it's definitely not Addison and Jefferson.
Oh, and so the player who fits under the category for me as they should use him this way, but I just don't believe the organization will, is Tony Pollard. You could have Tajay Spears in the backfield. You could really use Tajay Spears doesn't have that level of speed. He's quick, but he's not. But Tony Pollard has that speed. You could use him in the slot and keep Tajay in the backfield and have something there. But I'm not believing that the Tennessee Titans are conceptually
there's so
equipped.
Much lack of creativity in that offense. It's ridiculous. And that's absolutely. I mean, he played receiver in college. I think him and Antonio Gibson's another huge one.
Yep.
Where I wish earlier in his career that he was put out in the slot.
I forecasted him more as a slot receiver than a running back.
I did too. So I was shocked. I mean, he never really did. Honestly, never really developed as a running back. I mean, he had that really nice game his rookie year against the Dallas Cowboys that I remember. But besides that, he it's kind of fizzled out. I think Tyrone Tracy is someone I think that could help that offense in that regard, and because you just need playmakers in Giant Land.
Well, what about we'll end with this guy, because you've talked about RJ Harvey. We know that J.K. Dobbins is a good kind of back receiver. Kind of a good leak out receiver in that regard. But that's what he is. But I'm still a guy who, when I watch Ramondre Stevenson run, I think he's a good running back, a very good running back between the tackles, a very good angle route runner, very good screen route player, but you got Travion Henderson. And I know you are a big Travion Henderson fan, and I can see how you would say this guy fits that mold, especially in a room full of slot receivers.
Correct.
That, I mean, if you're going to talk about bag of hammers, the New England Patriots are a bag of hammers team when it comes to slot receivers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, I think with Henderson, he fits that role. And, I got into plenty of discussions about when I released the Y series, like, is he Jahmyr Gibbs? Is he Devon A. Chain? And the answer is no. I don't think he's as creative as a runner as those two. And neither is, and not even creative as a route runner. But however, he can stress the defense vertically. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you are split out, can you stress the defense vertically, stress the back or the safety, have them account for you on that third level. But also, too, the one thing that Travion Henderson has going for him, or he kind of has the running back trifecta. High-end play speed, his top-end speed is really, really good. Good accelerator. Catch the ball out of the backfield. Has great hands. He has great in pass protection. Like, regardless of size, like those are the three things that will keep you relevant in the league. And for that offense, they need explosives. Like they are devoid of explosive playmakers. Like I hope they finally open their eyes and Kyle Williams plays a lot. I think he can be awesome for that offense. I don't know how much Diggs has left, right?
Yeah.
Like their tight end room is Hunter Henry, and it's fine. I think Hunter Henry's a good pro.
When Kayshon Boutte, who they almost ran out of town after year one, is playing X and played well enough in the X, I want him on another team. Like the New England Patriots are committing malpractice. If you could put that guy as your slot flanker, like to me, Seattle might have been better if Cooper Kupp turns out to be like his career's dead in the water. I don't think it is, but say it does. Say it turns out that he's literally not what he should be, or that the Carolina Panthers decided they weren't going to follow suit with the New England Patriots and just draft one type of receiver over and over and over again. They could have like acquired Boutte on the cheap and let him be the successor to Humphrey to Thielen and be a flanker who can catch the football. And run after the catch. Like to me, he's that guy who could give you 800 to 1100 yards in this league if he just wasn't stuck in a role. He's like a I don't want to say he's a turtle, but he's like he's a crafty turtle who's figured out a way to put an outboard motor in the back of his shell to actually still convince people that he's good enough.
I'm not gonna say he's a turtle, but he's a turtle, a really good turtle.
He's a turtle in a rabbit costume with an outboard motor on his ass.
I agree. I mean, imagine him like in Buffalo.
Oh my God! Yes,
someone can actually. You'll forget he was so freaking good in college. Oh my God, was he good?
He's Jarvis Landry with a little more speed.
Yeah, he was so good in college. But my goodness, they're just gonna absolutely just neuter the heck out of his skill set.
Yeah. So let's go with one last one, just because for the old timer here, Austin Eckler. If Terry McLaurin, is trying to negotiate and the Commanders say, "Screw you, we're not trading you." And you can sit out for as long as you want and watch how you're ruining this team with this young quarterback because we're a bunch of sadists and don't want to pay you.
Sure.
Could you see Cliff Kingsbury going, well, Austin, you're a really good intermediate route runner and you can track the ball well. Maybe we could use you that way, and then we could put Brian Robinson or Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt or either one of those guys and keep them in the backfield and let him go. And Ja'Cory's pretty good himself. He's got a little Aaron Jones stuff going on, but it's not as developed.
Yeah, it's tough with Eckler because the injuries have really kind of just neutered his ability as an accelerator, which is early in his career he would separate from backers and safeties no problem.
Yeah,
but now I just don't think he has those gears anymore, which is tough. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about the Washington offense.
Yeah, me too.
Just a little bit, because I think Deebo Samuels is such an odd fit there. Terry McLaurin, if he says sayonara, they're in deep trouble.
Yep.
Even if he does stay, I still think they're in trouble because they only have a primary receiver in McLaurin, and Deebo's like, unless you are manufacturing Deebo targets,
that's right,
he's not getting open.
Yep.
And that messes up the timing for Jaden Daniels. I would rather have Jalen Lane play the slot than Deebo Samuels.
Wow. And Jalen claps. Jalen's like not a good pass catcher right now.
No, he is.
Yeah. Oh.
All body.
Oh, it's I'm. Jaden Daniels had a fantastic season, but this second year teams are more prepared, and now you don't have your top receiver. Yeah, if McLaurin's out for the long term or they trade him, Jane Daniels is dropping to the bottom of the top 10 of my quarterbacks,
Sure.
and I'd still probably look at guys who are better deals,
Right.
though the
For
running
sure.
skills certainly there. So, okay, great exercise. So let's talk about some rookies who do you think surpassing expectations right now in camp?
We talked about two of the three already. So Torrey Horton for sure. I think being removed another like 6-8 months from the knee injury is important. Krosky Merritt, I think, is the big one. I just think he's the most talented back in that room, and it's not particularly close at this stage in Austin Eckler's career. And I think Brian Robinson Jr. is just okay. I think he's kind of that Tyler Algiers of in terms of skill, which is
Yeah.
a good secondary option, right? But I think Merritt has primary back ability, and he just didn't play. Like
Yeah.
he's just
He ran out of
wasn't
eligibility.
he wasn't able to play. So I think just watching his tape and looking at him broad spectrum, he's definitely a primary back. And they need one in Washington too, so he kind of fits that mold. And then my last one is Isaac Tesla. I
Okay.
think he's starting around with the ones. I think he fills out that third receiver role in this Morton offense. Is it a lucrative fantasy role? Probably not. But in the future, if let's say they don't want to pay Williams, which I think they're going to run into a really interesting predicament because they paid St. Brown, right? Now you have to pay Williams. You got to pay Laporta. And you got to pay Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
And that's the thing that's tough is if you go and say, oh, I'm not going to pay Williams or, oh, I'm not going to pay Laporta, you're going to pay Gibbs. And Gibbs is probably going to have potentially the richest running back contract in NFL history, either him or Bijan Robinson. And that will likely happen. Then you're not left with that much coin
Yeah.
to pay both of those guys. So if you do not find a way to do that, and Brad Holmes is a very smart guy, so he very well might. And Isaac Tesla kind of comes in and plays well. I think he's got the size. He's a great blocker, good athletic skill. I think he's someone that could produce down the stretch for them and make them say, oh, you know what? We might not need a JMO. And JMO might go off this year for 1,300 plus yards and then really just kind of
Price himself out of the.
price himself out of Detroit.
I think he will. I think
I
that's.
agree.
Yeah, because he was a better route runner than what he was put into in Detroit, and a lot of that is because apparently some immaturity and some injuries
Yeah,
and
and
things
the
like
ACL.
that, and the ACL. So, yeah, so I think he's coming into his own this year, and they did say they're giving him more of a route tree this year, and I think that you're right. He could probably end up. He's one of those guys I'm trying to draft.
For sure.
But Tesla, I could see for sure. Like if you put him between, 2 to 3 good players, he can give you that Chase Claypool kind of Kenny Galladay-esque big season just in a limited capacity of
Right.
what they ask him to do because he is accomplished and athletic at what he does well. And then he can grow from there. And the big key is can he grow from there and will he not get a big head thinking because he got big production that he somehow made it and didn't have more to do? And I think he will. Now, I love the Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt thought there with that because he has looked good in camp. What you talked about there, even if you said Brian Robinson, you upgraded him a little bit and said he's LeGarrette Blount-esque, maybe still that means secondary back. You're right. So yeah, I like that, and I think that that's a guy you definitely want to be aiming for in the 18th, 19th, 20 round. I'm going to stay at your hometown, and I'm going to say Kyle Monangai because while I don't think he's a long-term answer in the NFL as a starter or lead back, I think he's going to be a surprisingly good secondary back in this league. When your coach says we are confident that we can go into the season with him and that we can count on him in pass protection. And this was not the part of his game that we knew for sure was going to be. I thought it was good and could get better, but like the thing that they haven't seen yet, but they just have a hint of, is how relentless and
Of course.
physical. Yeah,
The toughness is important. That's if you think about it, that's why Dave Montgomery got so much run.
yeah.
That's why Jamal Williams got so much run.
Yes, that's
And that's important.
yes. So I know Rashawn Johnson has shown some of that as a rookie, and I know he's getting red zone touches in scrimmage right now. But here's my thought about this, and I could be wrong. This is just my conspiracy theorist thoughts on this. Teams are probably looking at this going, well, we got Swift. We don't love him, but we know what he can do, and he can fit with what we've done. He knows our offense. That's fine. He's going to be our number one for right now, and we'll lead with that. But it's really between, we like this Manan guy kid. He plays hard. He works hard. He learns fast. He seems to be a guy that if he's as good as he is when the lights come on as he's been in practice, we might have found ourselves our Montgomery replacement for at least the short term. And if he comes in there and starts just like tearing through people and shows that he can handle it, and I got to say this about Rutgers backs of the past 5 years. It's not like they had great offensive lines that they were playing behind.
No.
So these guys, in a way, you could almost say that there's a little bit of a weight taken off of them when it comes to decision making between the tackles, or they're used to some of the things that happen and they can make do. They're good at mitigating losses, and I
Right.
think that Monangai is really good at that for what he has available, and he could be a really good fit. So if he starts strong, then they can bump Rashawn Johnson from the red zone role and he overtakes that. But if he struggles in any facet of the game because he's a rookie, well, they're keeping Rashawn Johnson in the mix so that his morale is high, that he doesn't feel like that he doesn't have a role and he's the odd man out. And they've got a guy who's actively engaged in the process of practice. So that I think Monangai's the guy that could have the most to gain in this offense, and Rashawn Johnson has the most to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so the last guy, my second guy, who I would say is probably not surprising, and I just think I think it's just due to injury. It's Taj Brooks, because I mean, look, that was what we needed to see, was either an injury or them to cut one. You know, Samaje Perine's still there, and certainly Perine is a tractor, and he's kind of got his power is inevitable, more like a steamroller, I guess. But that's
Very slow steamroller.
That's the thing.
That's true.
That's the thing. So it's like you can usually get up into the driver's seat on that steamroller and take the key out of it, to get it to stop, without fear of being running over. You can run around it and still catch it. So, but I'd say with Brooks, he's had a pretty good camp. From the talks of it, he's getting some decent reps, But I think the big thing with him is, Chase Brown. I know that a lot of people looked at what happened down the stretch with his touches. I don't think they see Chase Brown as being that heavy of a touch guy year in and year out.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I think he was a local guy. He was an Illinois guy.
Yeah.
So like I watched a lot of Chase Brown, and I've always thought he is the perfect 1B to a good 1A, like a good balance.
Yeah.
I think Taj Brooks slowly, especially as we get to cold Cincinnati weather,
Yeah.
November, December, January, I think Brooks is going to take a little more of that meat in the low red zone.
Yeah.
In particular, and potentially on third downs.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good pass protector.
He's one of the two best.
100%. So that was kind of for me, like this is a guy that can not steal work from Chase Brown, but balance out his workload, because he's not a 65, 70% touch share back, in my opinion. I think he's a good balanced 1A, 1B type that has good upside, And this is a offense that's perfect for him because he can be the tertiary option and kind of thrive while defenses are focused on Chase and Higgins and obviously what Joe Burrow does back there. So, but then Brooks can slide in and siphon some low red zone touches and kind of ramp up his workload, I think, as we get towards the colder months.
Now, my friend Dan Hatman, who's the director of the Scouting Academy, who's placed many a scout into the league over the past 10 years, and a former Giants and Eagles scout, wrote me the other day. He's going to be a guest on my Monday show. But he wrote me and just out of the blue and wrote, Chase Brown in tier 3 in my rankings is a personal attack against my 6th adopted son. He has 5 sons, by the way.
That's hilarious.
So I wrote back and I said, I am mean and misguided. And he wrote, at least we're honest about it. And I said, accountability is real. And I told him about my thoughts on volume, and he wanted to watch them together, because he thought he was excellent. And I agree, he was excellent in what they asked him to do, but I'm with you for the exact same reasons. And I also wrote, and I'm a Taj Brooks fan. I like lemonade. So on that, and who's not meeting expectations?
I think the biggest one is Tyler Shaw.
Yeah.
I think because you walk into one absolutely wide open quarterback, as wide open as I've seen a rookie go into, and it wasn't like he's like a day 3 pick. Like, no, this is legitimately something that could win a starting job, and apparently he is just not doing well. And apparently it's Spencer Rattler's job to lose, which I don't know if that's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in Cleveland, you have like 8 options.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to agree with you about that. And I will add that my rookie not eating expectations is the Cleveland Browns personnel heads, because they must be rookies for the fact that they, drafted Johnny Manziel after they saw him throwing to staffers on his agency rather than his receivers, because we found out later on Netflix that they were all drop dead drunk and hungover and passed out before the pro day workout. The scouts had to say, we can't draft this guy. I think the owner is still in his rookie year, because you have Deshaun Watson and what happened there. I don't get it. So he's a rookie. He's demoted to rookie owner.
I 100% agree. If you look at that roster, that offensive roster from top to bottom, I'm going to read you the first depth chart they came out with, and you tell me, what
are they smoking?
At what scoring offense is this in the NFL?
Yep.
Jerry Jeudy, DeJuan Jones, Joel Bentonio, Ethan Pochick, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin. Actually, an okay line.
Yep.
David Njoku, not terrible. Joe Flacco, Jerome Ford, Jamar Thrash, and Cedric Tillman.
Where's Deontay Johnson?
He's not starting, apparently.
That's not, because what did he do all last year? Yeah, so there you go. Let's keep adding guys like that to our team.
And that's that is the. I mean, like, they're going to be bottom 3 in scoring offense, I think.
Unless somehow they're going to unleash Harold Fannin and he's going to turn out to be like actually a wide receiver that's worthy of value, and maybe in 2 years in a certain role, but no.
I mean, Quinshon Judkins is, I don't think playing anytime soon. I mean, it's just they just completely mismanaged every situation this offseason. In the last 3 off seasons, just beautifully mismanaged it.
Yep.
And
they had a Super Bowl caliber team while they had Mayfield, but Mayfield had his head up his ass until he figured out, by getting the boot and getting his players and players' dads talking about him, that maybe he needed to do more work and do less commercials and actually focus on his flaws. And after getting bounced around a couple times, he figured that out. That's what his wife said. So when everybody says the Cleveland history, oh, they should have kept Baker Mayfield, he wouldn't have
No,
been the
he
Baker
didn't figure it out
Mayfield.
until honestly LA when he was with the Rams.
Yeah.
That's when he like his last. He even says it like that was his like last hurrah. Like him being basically put on. He got there on like Tuesday and had to play. I think it was a Thursday night game,
Yeah.
and I think that was when Baker kind of came out and started to figure out, oh man, like shit's not sweet. Like I gotta really put it together to have a career here, and he did. So good for Baker.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, the
agree.
Browns are just
Yeah, they're a
I
shit
think
show.
it started with this year in particular, trading the number 2 pick, right? And I've said this before, but the reason it makes no sense to me is you have such poor optics on the Cleveland Browns, the franchise, the past 4 years. You have a chance to draft a kid that can give you everything that you're not currently and bring fans to the seats and make people excited about Cleveland Browns football again.
Yep.
And they decided to trade it away for a D tackle who I think Mason Graham's a solid player, but it's you if you're a championship caliber team, that's a piece you bring in and worry about to solidify your defensive line, but you can't score points.
Cleveland Browns fans who are my age and older, they identify with players like Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Cleveland Browns staff, and I'm going to just say the owner because that's probably who it really is, it is a clown show. I mean, even the pilot organization I've just heard is kind of unpredictable in how they conduct business in ways, and he runs that. So he's probably a negative influence in everything that he does on some level. That's a little bit crazy. So, all right. Anybody else not meeting expectations that you want to bring up, or should we go on to your 2 or 3 guys?
I think those kind of make sense in a way. So yeah, I'd say just those guys. I mean, obviously, Dylan Sampson, you wish you hear more buzz about.
Sure.
I would say, but I don't think it's a disappointment.
Yeah. It's hard to tell with running backs. That's the thing.
It's tough.
When Kyle Shanahan says we don't really know what we have until we watch them in real game situations.
Preseason is so important. For running backs, I think it's just for receivers, it's tough because you might not be getting the ball.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing on the second or third string, it's like these second, third string quarterbacks just. If you're not the first read and you're not open, you're not getting around,
and people don't know how to even evaluate preseason football. I remember when Nick Chubb was a rookie, and there was a Giants safety who was literally on Twitter talking about how Nick Chubb was never going to be anything worthwhile based on watching. He was a former Giant safety, and he was literally watching Nick Chubb and commenting. And meanwhile, I'm like me and who's the NFL guy? Brian and Baldinger. Me and Baldinger are like,
great.
Me and Baldy are like both showing tape going, this is really good. And the former Giant safety is like, this guy's never going to be a starter in the NFL. It's amazing how that goes. So, all right, you're 2 or 3 guys who just fell into larger roles than anticipated.
I'd say the first one's got to be A.D. Mitchell.
Ah, okay.
I was not high on him, the inverse coming out of Texas. But I think this could be him turning it around to being a professional. Because that was really it, was can he take the craft seriously enough to clean up his flaws? Because the snap out of his breaks was there. The play speed, the size was there. But it just was so inconsistent that he can't show up on Sundays. But that offense in general is, I think Tyler Warren is their best offensive player, in my opinion. But I think Josh Downs is a good slot receiver. I don't think Michael Pittman Jr. is anything special.
No, I think he's overrated he
100%.
runs 2 to 3 routes really well.
Yeah, correct. He's not a full tree outside receiver.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce is a okay deep threat, but they don't have in my opinion, outside of Tyler Warren, you don't really have a guy that you can rely on down the down. So there's a space there for AD Mitchell to start and play well. So he's one I think that can just kind of elevate his game going into second year and going into their third year. And we talked about him a little bit. Roshan Johnson, he has a lot to lose because I think he's gonna enter the year with the Bears and play the Jamal Williams role, which is a pretty lucrative role. I think Jamal Williams had 21 touchdowns or something ridiculous like that, like 3 years ago, right? And I think that's the role that Ben Johnson wants for him because he doesn't want Swift in that role, rightfully so. And I don't think it's going to be like a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, where like they split goal line touches because both guys are good in the low red zone. I think it's Swift is poor there, so Roshan Johnson by default is going to play there because he does well in that capacity. But I think it's going to be Johnson and or Monangai in that role. And if Johnson doesn't show well, then it's going to be the Monangai show in the low red zone. I think this is a Ben Johnson offense that is going to be in the low red zone, hopefully, for my sanity a lot. But that's a role that's going to be beneficial. And if you're a fantasy drafter, my goodness, I mean, this is someone you can draft late and get potential weekly value from, especially in the Bears like weaker matchups.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a big one to kind of circle Roshan Johnson's name in. There might be some games where he has 8 carries for 28 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
That's, that could be very well true. And that's okay. That works for me. But with where you're drafting him, he's someone I think that will definitely outperform value.
I like those. I'm going to go. I think Xavier Worthy is finished strong, and I think he's going to finish stronger. I mean, I want your thoughts about this, about Rashee Rice and how he's looking in camp and how all that's going, because I know I've quoted you often about the injury and how that might look, but he's also going to miss multiple games. Is it going to be 3 or 4? Is it going to be 2? I guess we're still finding that out, right? I don't remember if I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a direct timetable of how many.
Yeah, but you look at they've talked since spring. We want to throw the ball downfield more. We want to get back to what we used to do. We want to see those atomic bombs being dropped over the defense. And I think Xavier Worthy is just the man for them to do that. He can be the Enola Gay. I mean, he's that guy who really can stretch a field. He's better in the middle of the field than you would expect on contested plays. He's not someone you want crunched all the time like Brandon Marshall, but he can certainly go over the middle and do some of that work, and he's great in the open field. So I could see how they want to get him loose and that we're going to see better rapport out of him in an offense that's known to be a bit of a challenge. I would say Ricky Pearsall got dropped into a good situation. We'll see if he makes do on it. The good situation is that if he runs his routes well, he has a quarterback who has excellent anticipation and placement. So with Ayuk being at least 4 games,
4 to 6,
4 to 6, and probably more like 8 to 12. With
I was going to say close to 12 to 14 to be like. I'll be honest, I don't think any receiver is 100% back the first year move from an ACL. I don't think any player is. The only player that I can remember in recent memory was Adrian Peterson. That was it.
Yeah.
He was an absolute freak when it came to that type of stuff. I mean, one of one, and that's the thing. And, you asked the Rashee Rice question. I think the tell is going to be how he does with contact. That's what I hate when people posted videos. Oh, he looks great. He looks awesome. Like Stephon Diggs running routes full speed. He's like, oh, he looks so good. He's gonna have 160 targets.
Yeah,
I'm like, how your knee does and how you do from like a psychosomatic standpoint, like when contact is imminent in non-practice contact, like guys are trying to kill you, like that is a totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
And you don't know until that, those hits start piling up of how you're really feeling. And any injury of that magnitude, like ACL, Achilles, like we saw last year with Kirk Cousins even too, like he looked great to start the year. And have you seen the quarterback documentary?
Some of it, yes.
the second season's good because Kirk Cousins was awesome to start the year, and then as the hits piled up,
Yeah. But he
as
could. But here's the other thing that was awesome about him: the offense did not ask him to throw anything with velocity to start
correct,
the
and
year.
so they course corrected, and that was the interesting part with a receiver. There's not really a course correction. It's your tree is your tree, and if you're a primary option, your tree is expansive.
Yeah.
And so that's the tough part, especially with Rashee Rice. Like he's a tackle breaker, right? He's a DJ Moore plus type of player.
But
That's the hard part.
remind folks, it's just an LCL. That's what I keep hearing people say.
It's tough because the stabilization, but also to the hamstring. That's the tough one too. Is we're talking about a multifactorial injury, not just like, oh, okay, you blew your LCL. Okay, we will repair it. No, this is LCL and significant hamstring damage too. So that's multifactorial. So you're thinking like neurologically, your body has to repair, get ready to perform at the highest level and take contact. Like that's the hardest thing people understand is the contact. You have to be able to like absorb and reproduce force via contact, which is hard to do in general if you're a human being getting tackled by 200 plus pound men down to down. But like being able to do that when your style of play is producing force through defenders.
Yeah.
His Rice's ability to shed tackles and evade and stay on his feet is upper echelon for the position. And with the ball in his hands, can he produce that this season is going to be the really big question. And I don't think he's going to be 100% of himself until the playoffs. I think that is when you're going to see if he stays healthy, if they don't overload him earlier in the season. I think that's going to be when he's at his best. I mean, I could be wrong, and he's crushing it through contact. But the issue is he might look great first 3 to 5 games, and then we see a massive degradation the last 3/4 of the season.
Interesting. Well, listen, if there's a guy I'm betting on right now, wink, wink, for who's going to come back like Adrian Peterson, it's going to be Stephon Diggs. Mainly because I think if he's allowed to use that pink powder they found on the boat, he's not even going to remember
smelling salt.
That's all it is. That's all it is. He's not even going to
Himalayan sea salt.
He's not going to remember that he was injured. He's just going to think he's a giant of a man. So, but no. The second guy for me was Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has been good the first 2 seasons. Obviously, he's been a top 20 receiver, but sure. I don't think. I know that Matthew Golden has had a nice camp from what people said, but a lot of that's vertical routes and doing great in the vertical game, which is to be expected. Remember Romeo Doubs, who's never had a starter-worthy season, got the same love, and even for longer and earlier. But I think that I like Golden, but I think that Golden may be more of that sacrificial X in some regards, and we may see that Jaden Reed, who has a Stephon Diggs like game that hasn't been fully unboxed in Green Bay to the level that it could be, this might be the year that where they end up having to do that a little bit more.
I hope so. And I think it's just what LaFleur does with Reed is so odd to me because he doesn't play in 2 receiver sets.
Yeah.
Like never. And it's like he's your best receiver. I think Dontavian Wicks is good, but he can't catch the ball.
Yeah.
But like you don't have like Dubs is fine, but like you need a primary receiver to survive in this league. Yes. That's just how it is. Like what's the last Super Bowl that you went into and you didn't have at least a top 12 primary guy? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is you need to win the NFC, you need a guy who can win at all 3 levels, can win after the catch, and Reed can do that. They just don't. Yeah. For whatever reason, LaFleur just does not want him to be the primary guy. He wants him to only operate in the slot and not in the outside. I don't know. It makes no sense. It's good for me. I'm a Bears fan, so.
Right. Well, listen, We've enjoyed this. I hope this was as good for you as it was for us. We will see you in a couple of weeks. By that time, we'll be really knee deep into the preseason.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
check out, Brandon's work at Angelo Analysis. You can find me at mountwaldmanrsp.com. And thanks again for your support. We really enjoy doing this show, and we'll talk with you guys soon.
Absolutely.
All right.